Hello, hello. Now time for the exam 1 solution video. Just posted this within a couple minutes ago, pretty much. Maybe a little longer than that. Oh, 3 people saw it now. Nice. It's been a bit since I refreshed the page, so that's cool. It was 0 a couple minutes ago, because, again, I just posted it. But it is 6:44 p.m. on Christmas, where I am. So depending on how quickly I get this uploaded, if I have to do like 5 takes for this, depending on how quickly people see the puzzle, you may or may not see this on Christmas, but Merry Christmas if it is that time for you. So, pretty straightforward. We've been through this series already. The assumption is if you're here, you probably have at least done at least one of the previous puzzles before. This little blurb in the middle says it's time for your first exam, and this is intended to be the toughest in the series. I don't know if I fully agree with that in hindsight. I feel like it flows pretty smoothly overall, which makes it not be too bad, really. It's just the individual deductions early on are definitely, they expect a little more out of you. Then it also warns that the ending stage of the puzzle requires spotting something that is tougher than I would normally leave in a puzzle in this series. In fact, I was very close to not leaving it in there, and I was going to add an extra clue. But after some feedback, I decided this is an exam, so you might as well prove yourself with having a little more difficulty at the end. I will include a more direct hint on kind of where to kind of look for that, and I will try to remember to include in the description a timestamp for where you can jump to see where that hint is. All clue types introduced so far are in play. So we have Dynamic Fog, Cages, Kropke Dots, Storm Whispers, Renban. For the interest of time, I'm assuming you know what those all are by now. Let's tab over and take a look. So we have 3 boxes that are visible right away. They're kind of laid out this way because they don't see each other at all. This box is entirely separate to this one, which is entirely separate to this one. So we're going to be solving these almost as like mini puzzles on their own, where we're going to get a couple digits in each one, and then that will clear the fog and we can continue. Let's start with this one, because I think this is my favorite of the 3. Because I had the vague concept for what I wanted to do with this, but then didn't really know exactly what cage totals would work for it, and I kind of just started plugging in numbers and just seeing what would happen, and then this happened to work out pretty nicely. So 8 cage only has 2 options, so that would be the good place to start with this. It can either be 1, 2, 5 or 1, 3, 4. Either way, there's a 1 in it. And we can also say, if it's a 1, 2, 5 cage, the 5 must be in the top right of it, because we can't have 5 on the green lines. This now enables us to see that this is a low digit. So to keep our low-high pattern that we're used to on the green lines, this must be high, that must be low. This must be high, that must be low. And now we got a kind of interesting quadruple here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 in 4 spots here. The important thing from that is that this now cannot be 1, 2, 3, or 4. It must be a 5. And that proves that this is a 1, 2, 5 cage. Which now gives us a 1, 2 pair, which now communicates over with the other cage and gives 3, 4 pair over here. And that leaves us with only 1 digit we can put here, because 3 and 4 gives us 7. Making that 13 means we must have a 6 here. 6 comes out from there. That leaves us with either, I believe it is 7, 8, or 9 in the middle here. But again, we can do a little better than that, because this is 3, 4, and 3, 4. At minimum, these would have to be at least 8 to be 5 away from the 3. The 7s come out from there. 7 must go in the center. That is all we can do with the box for now. Resolving the rest of this is going to need some help from some other clues later. The next box up here. Gonna breeze through this a little quicker than I did. This is my second attempt at recording this because I messed up later on in the solve, but I'm gonna try to make this a little bit quicker. I'm gonna point out that there's sort of 2 approaches you can take to this depending on your skill level. They give you the same result in the end, and they use the same sort of logic, but if you're a more advanced solver coming to this, you might more quickly notice a kind of shortcut, sort of, for this. So the basic idea for this is that there's an interaction that happens between black dots and cages that sum to 5. Or, if you've ever seen a V clue before, that indicates 2 things, sum to 5. Same idea. I've used it in another one of my puzzles that's comfortably in sort of the 2-star territory. And so I don't require the solver to figure that out here, because this is meant to be easier than that. But if you know that interaction in advance, you can kind of save a step here, and kind of just cut to the chase a bit quicker, pretty much. I'm not going to prove it here, just because I don't want to be here for too long, but maybe first pencil mark some stuff in, and I can point it out. 5 gauge is 1, 2, 3, 4 in some order. White dot means this is also 1, 2, 3, 4. It technically could have been a 5 from the white dot, but 5 and 10 gauge would not work with another 5 next to it. This must have a high digit alongside it to sum to 10. And this could be anything except 5, 7, 9. So the interaction that happens here is due to the way these two clues would unfold among each other. A black dot can never have a 1 or a 2 on it if it's in the same box as a 5 gauge like this. So we cannot have a 1 or a 2 there. The other thing you can say is that there must be both a 3 and a 4 between these two cells. So if you feel like kind of challenging yourself and you want to prove that to yourself, feel free. Try some pencil marking, see what happens. But anyways, I'm not going to prove all that here because I want to keep this a little more approachable. So the way you get through this without having to focus quite as much on that is think about the Renban over here. Right now, there is no way you can put 5 anywhere over here. So there must be a 5 on the Renban, for sure. And so that's going to limit what else could go on the Renban. We could have anything from 3 to 7 that could technically fit on there. Because we could have 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, or 5, 6, 7. So you could test the boundaries of that a little bit. Maybe you can try going down and seeing, well, we have a lot of 1, 2, 3, 4s and 6, 8s over here. So it might be good to see, would a 4 even be possible to put on here? So if you put a 4 here, that becomes 2, 3. That takes out 3, 6. And then we take out 4 from here from the Renban. This would leave us with this needing to be 1 and 2, and this needing to be 2 and 3. And that breaks the puzzle. And that kind of proves what I was saying, that we have to have both a 3 and a 4 among over here. And if we put a 4 over here, that becomes impossible to do. So with this being unable to be 4, the Renban cannot go down from the 5, meaning this must be 5, 6, and 7. Because if we even go down even 1 digit and include a 4, it breaks everything. Now this is going to give us a triple that we can use in the box. 3, 6 comes out from here. 6, 4 comes out from here. 7, 3 comes out from here. This is now a 1, 2, which means this can't be a 4 anymore. This little arrangement is pretty common with white dots. When you have this sort of 2 digits here and then 3 options for it above here, the middle digit, in this case 2, has to be between the two of them. So 2 comes out from here. This gives a 1, 2 pair now. So those can't be 1, 2. Or 8 pair means that must be 9. 1, 2, 3. And just like over here, this is as much as we can do up here for now. But that resolves the second box here. And now for this one. I had a couple people in testing say that this was what they found to be the toughest, or one of the toughest things to spot, at least initially. I like it a lot. I just kind of really like the interaction between white dots and Renbans because they're pretty similar in concept. White dots are consecutive digits, whereas Renbans are consecutive sequences. We could have it be equivalent, depending on what happens. Like, if this ends up being exactly 5, 6, 7, that would be equivalent to just putting a couple white dots here instead of a line. But the point is, we don't know if that's going to be the case. Regardless, you can still look at this as a whole as being a set of 3 numbers. It doesn't really matter what order they're in, it's still going to be 3 numbers that are consecutive to each other. Same over here. And if you step back and think about it in that more general sense, what you realize here is we have some set of 3 numbers, consecutive, consecutive, 3 numbers again, consecutive, consecutive. Meaning this is more or less equivalent to when we had, I think it was in quiz 1, I left a couple, 1 or 2 boxes that were just the whole box was connected by white dots in the sequence, and we talked about, having 1, 9 on one end, and then 2, 8 next to it, because either way we're going to unfold from 1 to 9 either direction. We have a pretty similar thing happening here, but this whole box is connected by one long sequence of things, with some variation coming from we don't know what order the Renban parts will be. And so the way we're going to think about this is, given that we now know that this is effectively the same as one long sequence from 1 to 9, we can think about this as we're going to be ascending from this direction, going down and over, or descending from this order. But either way, we're going to get a single digit in the middle here. That's going to be common. So just to kind of demonstrate that, we could have, if we start this as ascending from 1, 2, 3, we don't really know what order the 1 and the 2 would be, but this would have to be the 3 in that, because we need to continue this going upwards past that point. So this is sort of one approach. We could have a 1 and a 2 in some order, with a 3, 4, 5. Continue that going up with a 6 or a 7, which would presumably it would have to be like this, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Or do the other way around, and this might look a little messy, but we could start descending 9, 8, and then a 7, 6, 5 again, 4, 3, 2, 1. So those are two ways we can unfold the box. The really important part there, that is the only thing we can get right away, is that there must be a 5 in the center of it. Just like when you have a sequence of white dots across the whole box, 5 is always going to be the center part. When we do that here, that gives us our fog clearing. That is dependent on these other digits getting placed as well, but because of the order we did this, I left this one until the end. So we immediately get a 14 cage, which resolves all of this now, or almost all of it. Because this is either 5, 9, or 6, 8, and it cannot be 5, 9. So this being 6, 8, this can no longer be 6. That's going to resolve most of this. This now tells us we're descending in this order, and ascending in the other way. We also have a black dot here. We can once again look at the options. We have 1, 2 gets taken out, 6 on the bottom takes out 3 above. We also have a drone whisper line. We don't know if this is going to be low or high yet, but it's attached to something else as well over here. And this will now tell us the kind of polarity of it, because the only high digit possible here is a 6. And if this was a 6, we would need a 1 here, and that's not possible. So this must be a low digit 1, 2, 4, with a high digit over here. And as it stands, this seems to be all fine and equally possible, until you notice or remember that there's a gauge down here. 6, 8 means this can no longer be 6, that must be a 9. Placing the 9 gives us a little bit more of an extension of the string whisper line. We don't really care if this might branch or go down here. We can see that it's going into here and then up here after. This must be a high digit. 6 is not possible. We also have 5, 6, 7 triple looking down, so this cannot be 7. And we also have a black dot over here we haven't looked at yet. 6 comes out, 3 comes out, 8 comes out there. That is all we can do with all that for now, so we have to spot something else to continue. And the thing we have to spot is this black dot cannot be 4, 8. And that's because if it was 4, 8, this would be impossible to fill. So if we take out 4 and 8 from here, it leaves us with only 3 and 6 left. And that does a couple things. It gives us that ordering for that, which now bounces back up here and gives us 4, 8 there. But more importantly, that also gives us 3 comes out from here, so this must be a 4 with a 9. Gives us 3 and 8 over here. That takes out an 8 from down here. Means there must be a 2 somewhere here, because it's either 1 and 2 or 2 and 4. And that 9 also takes out 9 from here, giving this an 8. And now the reason that's important is because this can no longer be a 4 now. Because if it was, we would need double 9. Since it cannot be, this is now a 1, 2 pair in this row, which takes out 1 and 2 from here, gives us 4, and gives us 2. So I really like that step. I think that's probably one of the more difficult things to spot. But I noticed when I was putting in clues that there was a 1, 2 pair here, and I was wondering how I could take advantage of that, and so I thought about putting this black dot here like that. So now we're going to get a bunch of classic Sudoku stuff to catch up. So I'm going to mostly breeze through that without speaking too much. This column needs a 5 and a 7. This box needs a 2, 3, 4, and a 7. And that's going to mostly fill itself in. This is either 4 or 7, and it can't be a 7 because of the triple up here. This needs to be a 1 and a 9. Needs to be 2, 4, and 5. Yes. The triple down here. 1, 7, 9. 3 and 8 over here. And 4 and 5. No, not 4 and 5. 5 and 6 here. And placing those digits in, all of this is dependent on all of that classic stuff being done. Gives us 2 more clues up top. And believe it or not, even though there's a pretty good amount of the grid left, this is the last set of like variant clues that will be kind of unveiled from the fog here. These will be enough to resolve the grid. Let's look at the options. 7 cage can be 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 4. A couple of those are not possible, at least in certain directions. 3, 4 is totally wiped out. So this is either going to be 1, 6, or 2. And we have a dot over here. 6 and 3. 4 and 8 come out from both of them. So we end up with the black dots either going to be 1 and 2 or 3 and 6. The way we crack through this step is sort of 2 approaches. I found one person in testing pointed out that there's a hidden single in this row, that there's a digit that can only appear in one spot in row 1. That's totally valid. Feel free to look for that if you want. The way I was intending this to be worked out is to think about if this was 1, 6. This would be impossible to fill as a black dot now, because 1 and 6 are taken out. We would have to have a 2 and a 3 on a dot, which is not valid. So this cage is not allowed to be 1, 6. It must be 2, 5. With that 2, 5, 2 comes out from here, 1 comes out from here. End up with 3, 6, 7 here. That gives us 8 and 3 down here. And then you might be scratching your head now saying, well, what to do? We can do a little better with, like, say, a 1, 9 up here. That gives us a 1 here. But if you start pencil marking stuff in the grid or look for classic deductions, there's not a huge amount of progress you can make, really. And this is now the stage where I was a little worried that this might be a little too tough, just considering the trajectory of the series so far. But I decided to keep it as is, and figured I could just give a hint here. Typed up the hints to someone. Let me grab them out in the same way. Okay, found it. So this is the point where the hint is helpful now. I would say the initial hint I can give is that there are no clues left to really disambiguate the grid. So this might already be implied, but this is a completely kind of purely classic Sudoku sort of deduction you have to find right now. And it's basically a lesson of don't forget the basics. Looking for areas where digits can only appear either once in a certain area, or if a single cell can only be 1 digit. If you were looking for a more general hint on where to look in the grid, I would say look at this left area of the grid over here. And then even more specifically within that, box 4 specifically. So if you look for that and you still don't really know kind of what to do and you're looking for me to just kind of get over it at this point, get over with it and do it, I will do that. So what you would find if you start doing, like, say, pencil marks for all these cells, you would find that this cell is very restricted. And that's because if we see, we have a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a 9 looking at it. So this has to be a 1. And that's only being possible right now because this cage gave a 2 here. So if that wasn't there, this would be totally valid as 1 or 2. But we did put a 2 here, so this now must be a 1. That still on its own is not enough, as you can see. But combined with this cell, which previously was also either 1 or a 2, can no longer be a 1 now. This must be a 2. And that's not going to be enough to basically crack the puzzle open, because that 2 interacts with all this over here, and that resolves the middle box. It also resolves this down here. Means we can now put a bunch of pairs and triples pretty much everywhere. Here we need a 8 and a 9. 2 and a 4. 5 and 7, yes. 5 and 7 here. 4 and 8 there. 3, 6, 9 here. 1 and 6 here. That's going to fix all this now. 7 and 8 here. And then 3 and 4 here. And that brings us to the end of exam number 1. So, again, I was a little worried about that little spot here because it's kind of random. You know, there's no clues that would kind of suggest that you should look in this area. It's just, hey, this has to be a 1. This has to be a 2. And it's really not the kind of thing I would leave usually in this sort of puzzle where everything's been guided so far. But again, this is an exam, so hopefully you got through it. In a sense, I'm kind of hoping no one's watching this because I'm hoping people can just kind of get there on their own. But if you did need the help, feel free to give it a thumbs up and maybe let me know how you enjoyed the series so far. Because this is sort of wrapping up the first chapter of it. This is the 8th puzzle in it. I've introduced 4, technically 5 if you count the dots as 2 types. Different clue types. I don't know if I'm going to actually take a pause on making more in the series or not. Because there's certainly more I could do with this. But I also have other ideas I'm thinking of, and other hobbies I might want to switch to for a bit. So, not sure. But either way, thank you for watching.